Functions are the building blocks of programs. They're blocks of code that can be called by their name, and they may return a value to the code that called them. I'm Hugh, and this is another lesson in my programming course. This is a course about computer programs in general, rather than about the specific features of just one programming language. As we've already seen in C and C# and Java and in some other languages, a function's return type, that is, the type of data that it passes back to the code that called the function, is specified here. That's before the function name. This function in C# returns an int, that is, an integer or a whole number, and this one returns a boolean. A boolean is a true or false value. When a function does not return a value, it's marked as void. Not all languages do that. In Pascal, for example, a function that returns a value is preceded with the keyword function, and one that does not return a value is preceded with the keyword procedure. When code calls a function by name, the execution of the program jumps into that function, and the code inside it is run. It continues running until it comes to the end of the function. Then the execution of the program continues from the point just after the function was called. Sometimes you may want to pass one or more bits of data to a function. These bits of data are called the arguments to a function. Arguments may be plain bits of data such as integers and strings, or they may be variables, or they may be calculated values. They can even be the values returned from other function calls. Here, for example, when this code executes, this function, message, is called, and it returns this value, which is a string. It has to be a string because the function is declared to return a string. And when it returns, this string variable down here is assigned the value that's returned from the function. And then it's displayed in a text box. That's this line down here. This is a Windows Forms program written in C#, and so I've designed a simple window with a text box and a button on it. The arguments passed all match the number and the types of the parameters that are declared in the function header. So that's an int, another int, another int, and then finally a string. Here the first int is just the simple value 10. That's a bit of data representing the integer 10. The second is an int variable, that's n, which has been assigned the value 100. The third is a calculated value, that's n multiplied by 5, so n is 100, so that's 500. And then this final string argument is actually the return value. It's returned from the uppercase function, which sets the string into uppercase, and so the uppercase string is what's passed to the message function in that position. In most languages, the arguments that you send to a function must be matched in number and in type by a list of named parameters declared in the function header. That isn't true of all languages, but it is the case in most C-like or Pascal-like languages. Here, for example, in a C# program, I pass 3 variables separated by commas to this function. The first variable is a string, the second is an integer, the third is a floating point. When they arrive in the function, the values of those 3 variables are assigned to the string, int, and floating point parameters here. These parameters now become, in effect, local variables. Their names can be used inside the function, but not outside it. The precise way in which parameters work varies quite a bit from language to language, so I won't go into any more detail here. In my other courses on specific languages, I explain the details of how arguments and parameters work when that's important for you to understand. You can find my other courses on the playlists page of my YouTube channel. One other term you'll hear quite a bit is method. In object-oriented languages such as C#, Java, Smalltalk, Ruby and Object Pascal, functions are built into objects. An object is a code element that wraps up both data such as integers and strings and code, that is, functions. In object-oriented jargon, the functions in an object are called methods. That's because calling a function that belongs to an object can be thought of as passing a message to that object, and the function itself provides a way, that is, a method, of responding to that message. I'll have a bit more to say about object orientation in my next lesson. A fun way to learn object orientation in more depth would be to follow my adventure game programming course in either C# or Java. Thanks for watching. To get notifications whenever I upload new lessons, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon.